So one of the key aspects of learning how to communicate better is the attitude that you have, the attitude to change in particular. So attitude to change is something that we noticed when looking at how two different groups of people in two different agencies were dealing with a change system. And what we noticed is that you had overall 4 different attitudes to change. What we would call type 0, which could be when you think of change, the first reaction is fear. It's somebody who says no. And it's typically, you find this a lot in public service. It's people who are often resisting change out of fear. Now remember that an attitude is a behavior, it's not a personality trait. So an attitude is something that one can change from one moment to the next. It doesn't describe a person's personality as much as their attitude in one moment. And it can change from a place like home to a workplace quite radically. So a type 0 attitude is fear-based. The second attitude is what we would call a type 1. A type 1 is a person who looks at the world and sees a problem. They see a problem to be fixed. So right there, the problem is whatever. It might be the boss, it might be the company's management, it might be the environmental issues in the world. There's a problem outside of themselves that needs to be fixed. And the belief behind that is that if you change the outside world, something in the inside world will feel better. So the idea is that out changes in. And if you caricature this type of attitude, you could say that it's a change the world attitude. If you look at the opposite of that, then you would have a type 2. And this person would look at the same problem as this type 1 in the same world, except that they would be looking inside of a mirror. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, it would be insane to try and change, paint, or in some way modify the mirror. It's actually first necessary to look inside yourself. And the idea behind this attitude type 2 is that the inside changes the out. So if this person is a change the world type person, this is a change myself type of person in the behavior. So it means that if you caricature this and you take it to an extreme, a change the world type 1 person would probably, join an NGO or become an activist in some way, and you'd see them campaigning or actively trying to change other people and change things in the world. If you caricature the change myself type 2 people, you would have somebody who goes and meditates in an ashram in India for 15 years until they're ready for the changes. And of course they never are, because there's always something to change in oneself. So that's a type 1, type 2, and type 0. Type 3 is an attitude to change, which is believing that there is a balance between a type 1 and a type 2. I'm drawing the yin and yang symbol here just to show that it's a dynamic balance as opposed to a static balance. Static balance is what most people think of as balance, which is like, think of the scales which are in flat balance. But dynamic balance means that you're in constant motion, that there is a flux, that it's never one or the other. It's always trying to balance those both dynamically. So a type 3 person is looking at both trying to have impact and change the world, but also changing themselves and learn. And when you look at different agencies and different companies trying to do change inside of their organization, what you'll find is that the company that we went to and started to look at the change program over 4 years, they got something like 70% of the way of their change program, and they were a mixture of type 1s and type 0s. The second agency did roughly the same amount of changes, and actually more, probably even 80-90% of the change program in only 4 days, because their team was made of type 3s and type 2s. So it's a really powerful way to accelerate change, your attitude. So remember this: what is your attitude to change in any given moment? Is it a type 1 attitude, type 2 attitude, type 3, or type 0? And you can always decide to change that when you're in a stuck situation. Are you looking at it from type 2 only? Do you need to look at it type 1, or vice versa? So look at the attitude to change every time. The reason type 2 is difficult is because workplaces encourage type 1. Tools, things, solutions, quick fixes. Type 2 is about learning. So that's why in the context of learning journeys, having a journal and writing in it is a very powerful way of reflecting and activating the type 2. So look at the two together and try and have a type 3 attitude, and it will help you.